Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that great announcement about the youth ambassadors. I think that's wonderful, wonderful news. I'll start by thanking everyone who made the time to be here today. I always say this, but it is not easy to stop whatever you're doing, make it downtown, find a spot to park in, and pay for that with your hard-earned money. And those who came out last night, I think we had a lot of energy in the room. It's always great to see that. First, I'd like to thank Doug for going through this with us steadily, not just this time, but last time with the sustainability plan. I would say this is a highlight of your career. I hope that you will see it as such. Rod, Eric, Julia, and everybody else for their work on getting us to this point. I also want to thank the co-chairs of the steering committee, Dr. Ozudeli and Anita Ledbetter. Of course, you have to thank Jacob if you thank Anita for all of the work that you've done. And to everyone who served on the steering committee and the working groups, there were thousands of volunteer hours and volunteer passion that went into getting us at this point today. Enough about you. I'm going to talk about me for a minute. About 19 years ago, I was on the Stanford campus, and I was in a building dedicated to something called environmental fluid mechanics and hydrology. But by no means was I in an ivory tower. In fact, I was in a basement, and when I looked out the window, all I could see were people's feet going by, and they, yes, were mostly wearing Birkenstocks and Tevas. I wasn't, to this day, still don't own any. But I sat at a computer terminal that ran Linux, and I was very unsuccessfully trying to debug a Fortran code that would help us determine the impact of black carbon on the climate. I guarantee you that with today's action, I am making more of a difference on climate change than I was 20 years ago. That's not to say that we don't need scientists. Of course, we absolutely do, but we also need action. So I'm very glad to be here today and making the motion to approve this plan. When I started working in climate change, I really felt that it was frightening and overwhelming, and it can be. The impacts on climate of human activity, they affect everything, right? From the coral reefs to the pollinators to the growing seasons, and they exacerbate everything that's already bad, like international conflict and droughts. And climate change is influenced by everything we do. Every decision we make, whether I decide to buy this computer or that computer, they have different carbon footprints, where I get my food, what I eat, what I drive, how I get to work. It is overwhelming to think that, that you have to solve climate change. And there was a time when I left it because it was just too much, and I went into another line of work. And I understand when folks say we don't know the cost, we don't know this, we don't know that. It is too much, and there is a lot of uncertainty. But I will tell you that what is certain is that something must be done, and that's what we can't be afraid of. And it's something that government has to play a part in, and that the community has to play a part in. And to some extent, I do differ with one of my colleagues on the council on what the role of our local government is. And I think that can be frightening for some people too, is having government take a bigger role. But I will tell you, if we don't, then who will? So I gladly take on the role of protecting our community from the harms of climate change and of protecting the future for those who will inherit this city. A couple of comments before I make the motion. Just a reminder that over 50% of the actions proposed in today's document are not climate action. They are adaptation measures. That means they are about enhancing emergency preparedness, protecting our public health systems, and protecting our infrastructure. That is part of our job, what we already do or should be doing as a local government, and adopting this plan affirms that. Of the other 41 strategies intended to reduce climate pollution, every single one of them improves our quality of life in other ways. If you don't want more trees, don't pass this plan. If you don't want less trash, don't pass this plan. And if you don't want cleaner air or lower utility usage, then don't pass this plan. But if you want all those things, by all means, please support it, because that's what they're intended to do, these 41 strategies. After today's vote, I look forward to taking a lot of action. Number one, I'm looking forward to seeing our city implement transportation demand management. That's right, we will be carpooling, as I did today, as I've been doing this week, or riding the bus. I look forward to seeing the implementation of the Property Assessed Clean Energy program. Every major city in Texas has it, we do not. And I look forward to one heck of an Earth Day in April. In fact, we can call it an Earth Week. There are 3 things we need to be mindful of, though, as we implement this. Number 1 is the implementation of equity. I will be advocating that every member of the advisory group undertake San Antonio-provided equity training before serving on this committee. I also will be advocating for startup resources for a professionally facilitated advisory working group to ensure that we get off on the right foot and that we do capture the comments that folks bring to us. I know that that's something that we could have done better this time around. We're not going to let that happen. We need to do this right. And number 3, there's been some talk about how we don't have all the costs and we don't have all the numbers, and it would be great to have all of that. Some of the numbers that we were missing was detailed information on the cost of eliminating the coal plant or moving over to solar power. We trust our friends at CPS. They are the experts, but that's also a dialogue that we need to have with all the stakeholders at the table. So what I look forward to doing is having CPS bring those numbers forward. This week, the SAWS Rate Advisory Committee is meeting. They are advising on the rates. They are looking at the structure. They are brainstorming on the structure. And in order for us to achieve the goals in this plan, that's the type of dialogue we also need to have about our utility. 50% or nearly 50% of the emissions that contribute to climate change here in San Antonio, according to our latest assessment, come from energy use. We simply cannot get there without this type of information at the table. It would be like trying to do it with one hand tied behind our back, and we simply can't do that if we expect to meet these goals. And for those who say that what we do here doesn't make a difference, I would beg to differ. We have the single largest utility in the country. I think there's a debate that became clear over the past 2 years about whether that utility is its own business and we just reap the profits, or whether it's an organization that represents the values of the city and that the council adopts. The world is watching CPS being so big, and the industry is watching it too. And if they watch what they do, they are watching what we do as well. So I look forward to a rigorous implementation and to get started. So with that, I move to approve the plan.